Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing, publishing options and marketing ideas for your book. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more information at thecreativepenn.com, and that's pen with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 644 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 26th of August 2022 as I record this. In today's show, I'm doing a solo episode on lessons learned after 11 years as a full-time author entrepreneur. Yes, I left my day job as an IT consultant in September 2011, and I'm a little early with the lessons because I am, shock horror, taking a couple of weeks off to go and walk the Camino de Santiago. More on that later in the episode, but this is indeed the last podcast for a few weeks, and tips on how to fill the gap if you're going to miss me too much. I have plenty of options at the end of the show. So my lessons learned coming up in the interview section. So nothing too interesting in publishing and book marketing news this week, so straight into useful stuff. There are two useful summits coming up, one craft and one on the more technological side. First of all, Pro Writing Aid is doing a free science fiction writing week. It starts today, 29th of August 2022, but presumably if you go over to their homepage, you can still get replays. It has talks by award-winning science fiction authors, film directors, writing coaches, magazine editors, a space scientist, which is cool, and Andy Weir is headlining, one of the uber indies who originally published on his blog, then on Kindle, then got an audiobook deal, then Hollywood came calling. So yes, science fiction, really exciting stuff there. So if you do write sci-fi, check out the free summit at thecreativepenn.com/sci-fi, SCIFI, obviously. Links in the show notes. There's also a free author tech summit run by the Indie Author magazine, September the 13th to the 16th, so in a couple of weeks' time as this goes out, for independent authors looking to learn, experiment and test tools to help manage their writing and productivity. It includes lots of tutorial sessions on software like Plotter and Zapier, as well as AI tools for video, and sessions on topics like SEO, search engine optimization, audiobook recording, editing and mastering, social media automation, newsletters and more. So if you are one of those people who really needs to learn some tech, that might be a good summit for you. Check it out for free at thecreativepenn.com/tech summit, TECH summit, all one word. thecreativepenn.com/tech summit, links in the show notes. So my personal update, first of all, Soldiers of God, my Arcane short story, is out now on all the various ebook stores if you'd like to read it. And also this week I did finish The Creator Economy, which I'm really pleased about. I'm very happy with the course. I've been thinking about this for a long time, obviously, and then I did the full day earlier this year. I spoke about it at SPS Live, and this is a sort of, not a culmination, it's almost a new beginning. It takes a lot of what I've been doing and putting it into almost a new direction. So this is the intro to the course. Are you frustrated by the current author business models? Are you sick of chasing algorithms and tailoring your approach to big tech companies? Are you ready to redesign your business and marketing in order to create what you want, make faster money, control the customer experience, and develop closer relationships with your readers? If yes, then you're ready for the creator economy. In this mini course, I'll take you through the underlying principles, business models, and marketing ideas, as well as the possible future of the creator economy. It's not about throwing away all the existing opportunities for authors. It's about growing the potential of your business into new areas that you own and control. We live in changing times, but if you embrace the possibilities, you can surf the wave of change instead of drowning in it. So yeah, I'm really pleased with the course. It represents a sort of change in attitude as well as a shift in business model. And I also have a video taking you behind the scenes of my Shopify store. The whole course is about 4.5 hours long. So even if you saw my presentation at SPS Live or you got the digital replay, this is a much bigger it's an extension and a lot more detail. So if you saw that and you found it interesting, this is a bigger aspect of everything. So it's 4.5 hours instead of under an hour. You can find The Creative Economy and all my courses at thecreativepenn.com/learn. And if you use the coupon code SUMMER22, all caps, SUMMER22, all caps, links in the show notes, you can get 30% off any of my courses, valid until the end of September 2022. And of course, I have courses on lots of things, craft things, business things, and so have a look at that. I'm also, this week, I am in the final prep stage for my Camino pilgrimage, which I'm really looking forward to. I definitely need to get away, and walking long distance gives such a good perspective on life. Everything is reduced to essentials: walking, sleeping, eating, and one feels very grateful for the basics: shelter, rest, water, food, and being able to shower. It becomes not an easy thing, and you're just so happy to have a shower at the end of the day and eat some food and put your feet up. Like literally, it's like life-changing. So I'm flying into Porto in Portugal and then walking north to Santiago de Compostela in Spain. And I wrote about it in Stone of Fire, my first novel. I've been thinking about this for many, many years, but I have never visited. So I'm pretty excited about the whole thing. I know it will be a challenge, but pilgrimage is meant to be a challenge. And of course, my next book will be a pilgrimage book, and I will be talking about that then. You can follow the trip on Instagram and Facebook at JF Penn Author, and I will also share pictures on Twitter along the way. And of course, once I get back, I'll be sharing all of that. If you'd like to hear me talking about pilgrimage and what it means to be a secular pilgrim, because I am not a Christian, as well as aspects of why it's such a powerful thing to do, head on over to my Books and Travel podcast, where I have the latest episode is a discussion with Kevin Donahue about his pilgrimages, and we also talk about mine too. Why pilgrimage is not just a long walk, some of the highlights and challenges, and we also talk about the Portuguese route that Kevin has also walked and the one I'm walking, and there are several other episodes on pilgrimage if the topic interests you. Just search Books and Travel on your podcast app. So thanks for your emails and tweets and comments over the last week. K9 Hannibal on YouTube said on Michael Laron's estate management interview, "Thanks so much for this. I've had both these books since Michael released them and never touched them. But recently my father went through an absolute mess with a family member's will. In a nutshell, he'll never execute a will again in his life, even if you paid him all the money in the world." I learned just so much in this short interview. I need to read those books, which is fantastic. And C. Ruth Taylor, who's been on the show talking about self-publishing in the Caribbean, and I was on her Caribbean podcast as well. Ruth says, "I love this episode. A few of my author friends died recently, and I began thinking about this. In fact, I discussed it on my podcast a month ago, and I recommended Michael's book. And it looks like Michael might go on Ruth's show. So that's awesome. I love connecting podcasters across the world." And finally, Emily said on my solo Shopify episode in a comment on the blog, "What an amazing episode, and thank you for taking time to explain everything in detail. I am not yet ready to create a Shopify store for my books, but selling direct is one of my goals, so I will follow your journey with great interest." And absolutely, I completely get this. I hope that I'm ahead of the curve. And obviously Morgana Best and Katie Cross and a whole load of other authors who are Brandon Sanderson, obviously people doing Kickstarters, people doing things in different ways. I think this is the beginning of a shift. And in fact, I talk about this in the Creative Economy, that the wave that's coming, the wave of change is much, much bigger than the wave of change we've already had. And so I don't expect you guys to jump on doing a Shopify store at all. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I think is just it's a shifting attitude. It's a mindset shift from sort of doing everything to serve big company requirements to considering how you can do create your work and reach customers directly, and of course still have your books on all the other platforms. And I still have everything everywhere, although over time I'll have a few that are direct only. But yeah, I will keep sharing the journey ahead, and exciting times. Now, remember, you can tweet me at The Creative Penn, send me pictures of where you're listening. You can leave a comment on the blog or the YouTube channel, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. So this episode is sponsored by Pro Writing Aid, which I use multiple times in my editing process. Once after the full draft is finished, before I print it for hand edits, and then again before I send it to my editor. And in fact, for Soldiers of God, I used it multiple times. I love using Pro Writing Aid. It's one of my absolute must-use tools in my writing process. So why use software to help you? Why don't you just learn all the grammar rules and apply them yourself? Well, we all use tools to improve our writing process, and we are also often blind to our writing issues. It helps to have another pair of eyes, even if the eyes are software. So Pro Writing Aid knows all the rules and helps you apply them. And of course, you can choose not to make the changes as you like. It helps with making your writing more active, finding repeated words, finding words you could improve, sentence structure, grammar and punctuation issues, as well as typos, spacing problems, and more. It integrates with all the usual word processing tools, and importantly for many of us, including me, it integrates with Scrivener, which is how I use it. I open Pro Writing Aid on my computer, and then I open the Scrivener project and I work through each chapter. I learn every time, and it also has loads of reports to help improve your writing in multiple ways. I also use their plagiarism report at the end of every book. So won't an editor do all this? Well, yes, they can, but personally, I'd rather pay my editor to fix the things the software can't. And as brilliant as Pro Writing Aid is, it can't read your manuscript as a whole and comment on bigger issues like character development or inconsistencies or reader flow. So I use Pro Writing Aid as my essential editing tool before sending to my human editor. So you can check out the free edition or get 25% off the premium edition by using my link prowritingaid.com/Joanna, Joanna. That's prowritingaid.com/Joanna. This type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing. And by the way, my hosting is now enormous, so I'm so grateful to my corporate sponsors and also my wonderful patrons who support the show. And thanks to new patron this week, Shelley Nearing. And thanks to everyone who's been supporting the show on Patreon for months and years. And those people got money off my courses, even more money off my courses, and discount coupons for the direct store. So being a patron, you get the monthly Q&A audio, but you also get money off buying direct from me. So you can support the show at patreon.com, patreon.com/The Creative Penn. Right, let's get into my solo episode. Lessons learned from 11 years of being a full-time author entrepreneur. Almost 11 years ago, in September 2011, I left my day job to become a full-time author entrepreneur. Every year since, I have reflected on the journey and what I learn along the way. My challenges change and grow along with the business, and you will likely be at a different stage, but I hope that you find my lessons learned useful along your own author path. You can find all my lessons learned from previous years at thecreativepenn.com/timeline. And remember, just like everyone else, I started out by writing my first book with no audience. But with time and continued effort, everything is possible. So here are my lessons learned. 1. It can take a long time to figure out what you think about a topic, but writing a book can help. I finally finished and published How to Write a Novel in July 2022, after starting with an initial draft in 2016. It has taken me that long to figure out my thoughts and also to feel confident enough in my craft to publish a book on the topic. I was only able to write it because I rewrote my first 3 novels in early 2022, and you can listen to my lessons learned about that earlier on in the podcast feed. And that exercise of rewriting proved to myself that I know what I'm talking about. There is often an emphasis on writing and publishing fast in the indie author community, but some books take time to mature and are all the better for waiting until you feel the book is ready to emerge. Long-term listeners and readers know I have been talking about the shadow book for years now, and I feel that is a similar project. I have about 30,000 words and I even have a cover ready, but I don't know when that will be ready. As I discuss in How to Write a Novel, I am a discovery writer. I follow the urging of the muse. But once I settle on a book, I follow Heinlein's rules. I finish what I start. So the shadow book will arrive at some point, but I still don't know when. I'm just going to have a bit more patience with myself, since How to Write a Novel has shown me that it can take a long time to figure these things out. So if you're feeling like a book is taking longer than you'd like, well, maybe it needs to. So have some patience with yourself and with the muse. 2. Physical sickness and mental health issues can have a bigger impact than expected. The pandemic has taken its toll on all of us in different ways, and of course COVID-19 is still with us. These days we are learning to live with it, but most of us have had it or know people who have had it to varying degrees of severity. I had the Delta variant back in July 2021, and I talked about how much it impacted me in my 2021 roundup, not quite the year we hoped for, so I won't go into too much detail here. But suffice to say, it did have an impact, hence I wanted to include it in my lessons learned. I was much sicker than I expected, both physically and mentally, and it had a bigger impact on my life and business than I expected. I've never really been properly sick before, so it was a wake-up call in terms of the impact. Some days I could only do 1 or 2 things per day, and I didn't have as much time as I used to. I had to rest a lot, and my productivity was way down. If you have a chronic illness or long-term health issues, check out Christine Catherine Rush's book, Writing with Chronic Illness, which I found really helpful. So given that this is a lessons learned about the year from September to September, I wanted to sort of give an update. So I was still using an Aerofit breathing trainer to get my full lung capacity back in February 2022, more than 6 months after I had COVID. Now, I think it helped me recover. It's like if you know scuba diving equipment and you put the breathing thing in your mouth, like a mouthpiece. It's a bit like that, and you change the settings on either side, and I bought one and I retrained my lungs, basically. So either it did help or I just recovered with time, and I now feel I am back to where I was pre-COVID. But I also found the mental health side of it difficult, and I think that isn't talked about so much, but the virus does have some mental health side effects. I found that really difficult in terms of impacting my capacity for work and also my tolerance for much else other than the basics. My income dropped as I didn't write or publish as much. I also stopped doing a lot of the affiliate stuff I was doing, as well as archiving many of my tutorials. So, for example, my How to Build Your Author Website tutorial, I retired that, and that actually brought me quite a lot of income every month. I couldn't find the energy or the will to redo older things. Plus, I questioned a lot of what I was doing and decided that I wanted to shift my business model anyway. Life is short. Memento mori, remember you will die, and we all have to choose how to spend our time. These deeper questions have naturally arisen from the pandemic, but are also to do with my mature business. Many of the authors and entrepreneurs I grew up with online have pivoted to new directions or even changed careers altogether. More than a decade doing anything inevitably leads to change. And I do feel like the creator economy stuff is what I'm really moving into. I certainly don't think I'm giving up writing or podcasting. It's more about how I make my money and the books that I focus on really in the future. I also wanted to add that lack of sleep was a huge issue for me, and I've talked about that before in the New Year show, and just in general, the lack of sleep on top of COVID was very bad. But that was fixed for me Thankfully, in around March, April, I went on HRT patches. Now I am not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I just wanted to share it because it made such a difference to me. Within 24 hours, I was back to sleeping normally. So for me, that has made all the difference. Again, not advice, just my experience, but my recovery had a lot to do with being able to sleep. So, it's amazing what the basics can do. But yes, for me, that was a big deal. I know it's not for everyone, but I did want to mention it because it literally changed my life within 24 hours. Sleeping is the best. 3. Pivoting a business model takes time. So I've been researching aspects of Web3, AI, blockchain, VR, AR for a few years now. But there will never be one specific moment where things shift. It will emerge over time. And remember, you can find out more about the future of creativity at thecreativepenn.com/future. But these changes are inevitable. Look at how dominant internet business and Web2 companies are in 2022 and compare that to 2005. It's crept up on us, and the next shift will be the same. There are also cracks in the Web2 model, problems with pay-to-play business models, and legal, governmental and societal issues with the big tech companies. There is also a cultural shift toward local, sustainable, direct-to-consumer models that are based more on relationships than paid or algorithmic media. As a result of these changes bubbling up and my own preference for creative and financial independence, I started my slow pivot to what may well be my next business model, direct-to-consumer first, and then wide publishing on the other platforms. So I've sold direct since starting out online in 2008, but it's always been secondary to trying to succeed on the various stores. Now I want to make it my focus. So of course, my recent episode on building the minimum viable store goes into much more detail, and I intend to develop my store with direct-only and direct-first products in the years ahead. I also went with Shopify as they are developing an ecosystem with Web3, enabling sale of NFTs as well as cryptocurrency payment methods, so I have confidence they will be a scalable platform for the decade ahead. I've always had the twin business goals of creative freedom and financial freedom, and this slow pivot takes me another step in that direction. 4. If you can't take time out for life events and achieving goals after more than a decade of running your own business, you're doing something wrong. So I was writing out these goals and I was like, Why do I have to justify taking time out? I really don't. And if I can't take time out, then clearly I still am getting this wrong. So this is my last podcast episode for a few weeks as I head off to walk my Camino pilgrimage from Porto to Santiago de Compostela. And when I lay in bed really sick with COVID, I listened to audiobooks of people who walked the Camino, and I promised I would walk it once I recovered. Walking the Camino is the one thing I would be really annoyed about not doing if I died right now. So it's time to go do it. And once I've checked that off my bucket list, I'm going to expand my list to all kinds of other things. I'm also writing about it along with the other 2 pilgrimages I've done over the last 2 years, the Pilgrim's Way and the St. Cuthbert's Way. And it turns out I have a lot to say about solo walking pilgrimage in midlife, especially as a secular pilgrim. So clearly a book like that has a very niche audience. But I only want to spend time on projects that I feel are worth my time, the ones that only I can write, the ones that might have an impact on other people, whatever that means. So after more than a decade, I still feel that I need to check in with the business every day. But that is my own addiction, perhaps not a true requirement, because no one's going to die if I don't respond to an email or a comment. And plus, I have my wonderful virtual assistant, Alexandra, who will be managing things while I am walking. So yeah, I really need to change the way I run my business in order to do these deeper trips, because I want to be able to move into a different phase of my creative life. And the transition is to do with my age as well, and stage in life, age and stage, as they say. There are different psychological things that happen at these different points. And so I want to go much, much deeper in my creative practice and help other people do the same. So I also want to take more breaks, and perhaps even a longer break in the coming year, to focus on going deeper into these topics, because it's very distracting to have a sort of weekly commitment and daily commitments to business aspects, and I can't sink deep enough into things like the shadow. So I definitely will be making some changes. And I also want to think more about the bigger topics, the societal shifts as technology continues to change and our business models have to change. There are also many voices in the independent author community now, voices on podcasts, but also YouTube channels, in Facebook groups. There are lots of books on the same topics. And even though I was very early in this, I'm not early anymore, and I need to keep earning my place as we move forward together. So I'm really thinking about how I can do that and continue to be a voice that you want to come back for. So what do you think? Do you have lessons learned from your years on the author journey? I'd love to know. Please leave a comment on the show notes or on the YouTube channel, or tweet me, or if you've written about it elsewhere, feel free to share a link in the comments on the blog. And if you have any comments on my thoughts as well, I'd love to hear from you. So onwards into year 12. So I hope you found my lessons learned interesting, and you can find them all at thecreativepenn.com/timeline. Some of them are audio, some of them are just articles. So if you'd like more on my slow pivot, check out my new Creator Economy course, where I share a lot of the mindset shifts, the business model and marketing changes, as well as futurist elements, and bring it all together in a new way of thinking about the author business. It's got over 4 hours of video, which you can also listen as audio files. So if you missed the podcast over the next few weeks, you can go get more audio in the course. All my courses are at thecreativepenn.com/learn, and you can get 30% off with the coupon code SUMMER22, all caps, valid until the end of September 2022. You can also find audiobooks narrated by me on all the usual audio stores and on my store, creativepenbooks.com. And if you join the Patreon, you can get the backlist of Q&A audios, and there are years of those by now. And if you need more, you can get over 70 episodes of my Books and Travel podcast, which includes solo episodes of me talking about how various places have impacted my writing life. So you have enough of my voice to keep you going until I get back in late September. You can follow my Pilgrim's Progress on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor, and also on Twitter at The Creative Penn. In the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes and show notes, available at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. You can also get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can tweet me at The Creative Penn or find me on Facebook at The Creative Penn. See you next time.